This is Pandora, my 1,000-gallon cloud rainforest vivarium, attached to a second giant vivarium by way of a glass bridge, to Orchidia, my treetop canopy vivarium, and also via a cave tunnel to Hydromeda, my giant wetlands vivarium. Within this vast interconnected world lives an ecosystem of plants, fungi, and animals involved in a giant food web, and I've been studying their relationships as the whole system continues to evolve and grow. But guys, the moment has come for the rainforest's next phase on its path to biological nirvana, a new expansion, and my latest project of epic proportions. Behold, my newest and biggest vivarium yet, the future extension to our rainforest within glass. The natural biome this gigantic space will surely blow you away. Welcome to the Season 6 premiere of my Ecosystem Vivarium Series and the debut of VIV 4. Please subscribe to my channel and hit the bell icon. Welcome to the AC fam. Enjoy. So what biome or natural space will this new vivarium, VIV 4, be? Many of you had some excellent and even humorous guesses. A marine tank? A mangrove habitat perhaps? A desert vivarium? Mountain landscape? A savanna? The South Pole? Well, for those of you who have been following this series, you may be surprised that the majority of your guesses in a recent poll in my community posts were actually incorrect. Don't worry though, I'll reveal all my plans, including what biome this gigantic vivarium will be in this video. Now my plans for this tank was for it to be the biggest vivarium I've ever made, mostly because the biome I had in mind required more space than the other 3 vivariums in order to work. But bigger vivarium meant bigger and thicker pieces of glass and structural parts. And this was the first challenge. During the month break after the last season finale, my team and I went straight to work. Together with my friend and architect Ben and his team of tank builders, we began to carry the massive panes of glass into the ant room on the second floor of my home. These were the largest panes of glass we ever had to carry into the ant room. To make things even more challenging, we had to carry the pieces of glass up to the second floor of the ant room, which was a logistical puzzle on its own. I felt as though we were like ants, figuring out how to maneuver something important through a very limiting hole. Sure enough, eventually, we managed to carry the pieces one by one up to the second floor of the ant room. The metal base of the vivarium was way too large to carry through my home, so we had to pulley it up to my roof deck and carry it in from there. As I saw the sheer size of the base, my heart began to race in excitement. Had we gone too big? Nah. Piece by piece, we siliconed everything together, and I watched in awe as the future VIV 4 began to flesh out its glassy skeleton. So now to address those of you who guessed that this vivarium would be a type of aquatic habitat. A young blue crayfish stood still on the hydrometan floor. He could sense something big was coming, and he began to retreat and hide in the foliage. Another younger crayfish was also perusing the floor of the wetlands and sensed it was time to take cover. A pom-pom crab came rushing in. "Excuse me, coming through. We gotta go. It's time. He's coming again. Run and hide, everyone. Take cover and save yourselves." The snails, like this Clethon corona, sucked their bodies into their shells and held onto the glass for dear life. The various cherry shrimp, named the Skittles, continued on with their business, not worried about what was about to happen. For the past several days, the inhabitants of Hydromeda have experienced a recurring event that shakes up the wetlands on a daily basis. Even the fish could sense that it was about that time, and they had better stop schooling. Nervous, they watched the surface of the water carefully for the beast that was about to enter from the heavens. Valentino, my senior green tree python and newest resident of our rainforest, awoke from his slumber in the branches. He began to wander the foliage of the wetlands. I love the fact that Valentino here has made full use of all 3 vivariums. I find his shed skin slung around in all 3 tanks. As well as his droppings, which the soil creatures appreciate. Now, it may surprise you that despite being an arboreal species of snake, meaning he lives primarily in trees, only part of the time, I'll actually catch him snoozing up high in the Orcadian canopy. Other times, he opts to sleep closer to the rainforest floor, in Pandora. But lately, he's gained a newfound and surprising obsession with Hydromeda, the wetlands. And AC family, you're about to see exactly why. At first, he dabs his chin onto the surface of the water to feel the temperature. And then again, smelling the water with his tongue. And when he was ready, he slipped in and began to stretch out for a moment before dunking in below the surface. When I first saw him do this, I panicked, fearing he would drown. Did he even know how to hold his breath underwater? But to my surprise, there were no signs of a struggle, a choke, or water entering his lungs. In fact, with a puff out of air bubbles, he was able to submerge deeper and begin to gracefully swim through the water. I was completely shocked to see this. For his entire life, he's never known a body of water this large. So where he learned to swim is beyond me. It must be his instincts kicking in. It warmed my heart to see him swim masterfully through the hydrometan waters. As creatures got out of his way, he would come up for air periodically. And continue snooping around. I was actually shocked at how proficient he was underwater, as if he could actually perceive the various nooks and crannies in the rock as he continued to explore and smell things with his tongue. He would swim like this for as long as 20 minutes every day, and it made me realize that had I not moved him into our rainforest, I probably would have never known he could swim, and it seemed as though he really enjoyed it. I even caught him once diving, literally leaping from the top branches into the water with a big splash for no reason at all, other than what I imagined was completely for fun. Being a rainforest snake, it made sense to me that Valentino would naturally know how to swim. But seeing it with my own eyes now was truly mind-blowing, and in a way, changed my view on what the internet deems as minimum requirement for enclosure size and design for this species, which by the way is a tiny fraction of the space he has access to now, and doesn't include a sizable body of water at all in which to truly swim. All these years, he wasn't living the best life I could give him. But I was happy to see him thriving and happy now, and hope that other pet snake owners out there seeing this reassesses what the internet websites state is the minimum living requirements for a particular species. Valentino was a totally different snake now after moving into our multifaceted rainforest. And it solidified in my mind that constructing VIV-4 was definitely a good move for all inhabitants of our rainforest. But our rainforest already has a great and functional aquatic system that all inhabitants could enjoy if they wanted. So I decided that VIV-4 would not be aquatic. I also need to do more research before tackling a marine or brackish tank, because saltwater tanks are a completely different monster, but definitely something I'm planning on for the future. Plus, an ocean tank would likely be downstairs, as I'm trying to make some spatial sense as to the location of the vivaria and where the biomes would naturally be situated in relation to each other. So what then is VIV-4 going to be, you ask? Well, here are more hints. A tiny movement in the branches of Arcadia was swaying with the breeze. This is Pudding, a young marbled mantis, one of the hundreds of baby newly hatched mantises I added into our rainforest a month ago. From the looks of things, he was one of the few survivors that had grown quite a bit over the past few weeks. He climbed to the top of the branch and began to clean himself. What a spectacular creature! This species comes in both brown and green, and he was one of the brown ones. Pudding began to look around Arcadia, then wobbled on down the branch. Suddenly, he spotted a cricket. But this cricket was much too large for him. One day, he'd be able to eat crickets of that size. But for now, he'll just have to look for smaller prey. Now, speaking of crickets, the canopy was supposed to be a sort of refugium for prey insects, like crickets, a safe haven for prey insects to breed and hang out in large numbers, to later disperse and feed the rainforest's ground-bound predators, like Shortcake, our resident strawberry Pac-Man frog, concealed in the ground there. But over time, I have found that though the crickets will breed up in Arcadia, they still prefer areas of greater soils. So the majority of crickets hang out in Pandora more than Arcadia. My plan now was for VIV4 to be a second attempt at creating an even greater and more effective refugium for prey insects like the crickets, so they could go on to feed our predators throughout the entire system. I also feel a greater amount of ground space would highly benefit another group of key creatures that were the whole reason for this entire vivarium project and even this entire channel. The Hallelujah tree stump in Pandora was the site of a lot of action. A flash of blue appeared among the driftwood. This was the ever-gorgeous Sapphire Royals, my resident blue ants. They seemed extremely active on this day, and indeed, something important was taking place. I noticed a group of blue ants moving in and out of this hole in some driftwood. It was then that I realized that our Sapphire Royals had found a new home. Formerly, they were living up in Arcadia, but now had decided to relocate down on the rainforest floor into this hollow. I could see a guard standing at the entrance, monitoring who was entering. An Asian bullet ant came walking by, but did not dare enter. I could also see the nomads, our resident gnome ants, but they were too small to be noticed. I was so happy to see the blue ants were still doing well in our forest, because they were under threat by an invasive ant species, a super colony of black crazy ants named the Dark Horde. But over time I used my vacuum to minimize their numbers, as well as lower the temperature of the entire ant room by 2 degrees to curb their population explosion. The other native ants seem to be doing quite well as a result. Now I think the additional space of VIV4 will allow us to give more space to which our current natives could migrate if they wanted, as well as introduce more native ant species to add to the ant biodiversity, which in turn will help apply more pressure on invasive ants from getting out of control. Anyway, by night, the tank had been completed, and the sheer sight of it completely blew my mind. It was massive. Hands down the largest tank I've ever built, 14.5 feet long, by 7.2 feet tall, by 2.6 feet wide. It was a whopping total of 2,045 gallons, which is 7,744 liters, twice the size of Pandora, and over a third larger than Arcadia and Hydromeda. If there was a tank I could live inside, it would be this one. Both sides had opening mesh doors. each of the back panels could slide open to give access to the inside. The top was also mesh and housed some of the most powerful lighting I've ever had to install. The magnitude of it all blew me away. The stories we would follow and insights into the natural world this space would provide filled me with such excitement. The next day, my team and I cleaned the glass and began to add in the ground medium. So in case you haven't guessed yet, no, this isn't a polar vivarium, as that would not quite follow in natural succession from any of our current vivaria. Now, I've thought long and hard as to what our VIV4 would be. I knew it needed to be something new, a chunk of the natural world that would give us a new perspective on how ecosystems work, a biome that could host a unique set of life and provide a new habitat for creatures that inhabit this biome. I also, for a change, wanted to create a biome that you guys at home could also attempt to replicate on a smaller scale if you wanted. So it would have to be a biome that most of you have access to in order to source the various flora and fauna that live in such a biome, so we could all learn things together. After much thought and research, I finally came to the perfect choice for a biome for VIV4. It happens to be the second largest land biome in the world, spanning all continents except for Antarctica, existing in various different climates and altitudes, which means you likely live close to a version of this biome. I also felt it was an important biome to study as far as ecosystems go, because they happen to extract massive amounts of the world's carbon from our atmosphere, carbon being an element that is a significant contributor to global warming and rapid climate change. Finally, I knew any creatures passing from our rainforest into VIV4 could possibly actually enjoy and see populations on its soils. And no spoilers, but some previously evicted species that were removed from our rainforest in past seasons could possibly be making an epic return to the series, this time as inhabitants of this new world. 2 days into the construction of the ground media, I stared at the initial topography of the surface of our new giant vivarium to be, and was pleased with what I saw. I admired its smooth rolling slopes and dips, adorned by stone boulders, even a pit, and it appeared as though VIV4 was like an empty and dead planet, sterile and lifeless. That wasn't until I spotted this. A tiny sprout of a plant had burst up through the soil. It was our vivarium's first sign of life. As I looked around, I noticed other baby seedlings also bursting forth, taking full advantage of the free real estate. Our VIV4, even without me adding anything in yet, was already coming to life. Oh, how awesome it will be once this vivarium is complete. And so, AC family, the time has come for I, your creator of worlds, to begin the world-building process. Welcome, AC family, to Season 6 of my Ecosystem Vivarium Series, which I call Grasslands. Vote in my community tab to affect this story.